Moultrie. A lot of us know it as the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And it has a statement in it. It has many, many contradictory statements in it. But one in particular I want to read before we move on. You notice this is a generic document that was passed on throughout the British Commonwealth for a nation seeking independence. And under Chapter 6, the executive, you know, the executive branch of the government is the cabinet of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And this document reads under Article 71, the executive authority of the Bahamas is vested in Her Majesty. Can you believe that our independence document, the Constitution of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, that is seeking to give us our freedom, starts off with a statement that the executive authority of the Bahamas is vested in Her Majesty. That's Article 71, subsection 1. And subsection 2 says, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the executive authority of the Bahamas may be exercised on behalf of Her Majesty by the Governor General, either directly or through officers subordinate to him. Herein lies the ambivalence of independence of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I saw an earlier video with an interview of the father of our nation, late Sir Lyndon Oscar-Pinckney. And when the question was put to him, are you seeking absolute independence for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas? His response was no, we are not seeking absolute independence for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. What we are seeking as a party is internal self-governance. So, you see, we are about to celebrate 50 years of what we consider to be independence. Tomorrow, July 10th, 2023, we'll welcome with great ambivalence the independence of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And my question is, are we celebrating a jubilee of 50 years? Are we celebrating a fantasy of 50 years? Or are we celebrating 50 years of idolatry? In the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, tomorrow and for many years we shout, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. But little did we know that those persons who purported to be giving us our freedom, their love continue to be symbols that despise us and keep us in bondage. You know, 50 years ago, some of you may not be old enough to remember, but 50 years ago, I was one of those who assembled on Fort Charlotte. I was there. And I could tell you, it was great happiness as we watched the lowering of the Union Jack and the raising of the aquamarine gold and black flag of the Bahamas. But with independence, the great ambivalence of independence is we didn't recognize at that time that that blessing was also a burden. That joy that we experienced was also going to become very scary. And that the power that we appeared to receive on that evening was also going to be coming with some pain. Today, we exist in a state of mixed feelings and mixed contradictory ideas about independence and about our freedom. The great ambivalence of independence today reminds me of Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities. Charles Dickens said, it was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief, and it was the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light, and it was the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope, and it was the winter of despair. Now, Dickens was talking about a period during the French Revolution of 1775. But when you examine that statement today, it seems as if Dickens was a guest at Atlantis in the Bahamas and writing about the circumstances that we see in the Bahamas today. Good times and worse times. Wisdom and foolishness. The belief in God, and now all of a sudden this belief in science. There was a period of light and a period of darkness. And I was taken to the book of Mark, chapter 15, verse 1 through 8. Because as I read Dickens, I was reminded that we are focusing on the superficial in the Bahamas. When you look at the program for the 50th Jubilee, it's a major focus on the superficial. Lots of parties, lots of jumping. Why they don't have any problems with jumping war parties? There has got to be more than that. There must be something deeper than parties, jumping and dealing balls with respect to what we are celebrating at this time after 50 years. And this scripture brought it home to me. As Jesus was leaving the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Look, teacher, what massive stones, what magnificent buildings." See, the disciples saw the superficial. What massive stones, what massive buildings. "Do you see all these great buildings?" replied Jesus. "Not one here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down." As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately, "Tell us, when will these things happen? And what will be the sign that they are about to be fulfilled. And Jesus said to them, watch out that no one deceives you. In other words, don't let all this superficial stuff deceive you. Many will come in my name claiming, I am he. Some will even claim a new day. But they will be deceived, and they will deceive many. When you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise up against nation, kingdoms against kingdom. There will be earthquakes in various places, and famines. And then the most profound statement he concludes with, these are the beginnings of birth pains. In 1973, July 10th, as we celebrated on Fort Charlotte, little did we know that that was the beginning of birth pains. And 50 years ago, the territories colonized by Great Britain, known as the Bahama Isles, experienced this birth pain of gaining independence. But we must be cognizant of our history, and that our history did not start 50 years ago. And that is why I brought another book with me. This book is beginning to fall apart. This is a book, The History of Philosophy. Because we need to know why and how did we get to the point where we needed to get independence. Now, this book talks about Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, the great Greek philosophers from Athens, Greece. And Socrates in particular, who was like basically the founder of this Western philosophy, he didn't believe in theocracy, neither did he believe in democracy. Socrates felt that when you compound democracy with capitalism, you would find a perversion of the democratic principle of equality. Because suddenly what would happen would there would be classifications of people where the rich will have more control and power in a democratic state. And so he started this session for questioning. And the nobles of his time got, when he started to reach the people through his questioning, the nobles decided we need to get rid of this guy because he's making these young people, particularly the peasants and the commoners, too wise. And so they took him to court, they gave him hemlock to drink, which is a poison, and they killed Socrates. But Socrates had reached Plato, and Plato carried on the work. And Plato reached Aristotle. And Aristotle, which is basically the foundation of where I'm going, he decided that, wait a minute, we need to exclude these commoners and these peasants. The ruling class are the nobles. And so the ruling class should make all the decisions and don't ask the commoners or the peasants. They should simply tell them what they're going to do. And then develop aristocracy. You might hear about the aristocrats. That is what we are facing today in this world, where democracy coupled with capitalism is creating aristocracy. And so the Europeans adopted the philosophy of Aristotle and the earlier Greek philosophers. And they went on a program because they had the military might, and they started going out and conquering territories. The Europeans, the British, the French, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Dutch, they came into our regions of the world. They went into Africa, into the Caribbean, into South America, even North America, and colonized all of those territories. You know, when you think about colonization and you read upon history and the atrocities of colonization, you would then begin to understand why there is such great ambivalence about independence. The British, for example, they went into India, and the historical records show that they murdered millions, almost 100 and some million Indians. But God is so good that today, when you say, show me a picture of the Prime Minister of England, who do you see? Sounds very British, just like we speak English and sound British. But his roots from India. At one time, Great Britain had colonized the United States of America until 1772, when the Great Boston Tea Party caused the U.S. to rebel, to fight for their freedom. The problem is, with most of the African territories and the Caribbean territories, especially the British territories, we never had to fight for our freedom. They gave us a document, and we accepted that document. And you can see, just from the wording of that document, it tells you what they thought about independence and what they believe they were doing or wanting. That is why we are still a part of the British Commonwealth. Now you know, when you go on Facebook or on social media, they have this way of these matters just popping up and popping up on your cell phone. And just recently, every time I go on Facebook, this message keeps popping up on my phone. And it is a Tribune story that says unemployment at 15-year low. And so I said, let me take a look at that. Because I have a statistical background and a scientific background. I said, let me see what the story is saying. And I read the story, and the Prime Minister seemed to be taking credit for his administration, lowering of the unemployment rate. And my immediate reaction was, what is announced in this article is contradictory to my statistical background. Because there is a directly proportionate relationship between crime and unemployment. Usually when crime goes up, unemployment goes up. And likewise, when unemployment falls, crime is an indication that crime is also falling. But all of a sudden, this story is talking about an indirect, invoice relationship with crime and unemployment. So, I had to go a little deeper. And I started to look at it. And I said to myself, what is missing about this story? And right away, I didn't see anything in the story which says that the number of Bahamians migrating to Canada is at an all-time high. See, because you're talking unemployment, you can't claim lowering the unemployment statistics when Bahamians have to leave your country because they can't find employment and go to Canada. I had a friend who married a Canadian, and when he came back just a couple of weeks ago, he told me, he said, Moultrie, I've been in the mall in Canada, and I thought I was home. I was hailing Bahamians everywhere. So the unemployment statistics must go low if your people leave in your country to find employment elsewhere. The President of the United States just recently said that he's accepting 30,000 immigrants from any country that wants to come into the United States. I don't have the statistics of how many Bahamians have made application and leaving to go there. But I know a lot of Bahamians who go to university now are not returning home. I didn't see a list thing that indicated the discouraged wake up. Because when you take that statistic, they normally take it in May. And the reason why they take it in May is they don't want to include the school leavers in June. So 5,000 to 6,000 people are leaving school. They take the statistic for unemployment in May and giving you basically false statistics for the year, because 5,000 or more school leavers are not included. And they don't include the discouraged workers. The discouraged workers are those who have given up seeking employment. Neither do they disclose the number of dead people, because they can't go to the Ministry of Labor seeking employment, right? But deaths, murders are on at an all-time high again. So I looked at it and I said, this is amazing. But this story is popping up at the time of independence. What also was excluded from the story was the post-COVID syndrome, which causes people who've been staying home for like 2.5 years to want to stay home. I know people who have jobs who refuse to go back to their jobs because they got so comfortable at home after COVID. So we have to be careful when we see things being presented to us. In Mark, they said people will come, but do not be deceived. My question is, are we more independent after 50 years or more dependent after 50 years? Is our national debt higher today than it was in 1973? The Bible tells us the borrower is slave to the lender. So my question is, have we been released from slavery on the 10th of July 1973? If in 2023, tomorrow, July 10th, we are in greater position of slavery as borrowers to the lenders, are we free? Are Are we truly independent? Are we creating our own jobs? Or are we glorifying in plantation economics and commercial charity? Because no one loves us more than we should love ourselves. No one is coming here because they love the Indians more than they love themselves. Foreign investors, while we welcome them, are here for the bottom line, for what they can benefit, what they can achieve. Will it take us another 50 years before we move the Bahamas from economic charity to social and economic justice and ownership? Where's the vision? Where's the plan for the Bahamians to become owners of their own land and the people who will determine their own destiny? The Bible tells us in Proverbs chapter 12, verse 11, he that tilleth his land shall be satisfied with bread, but he that followeth after vain persons is void of understanding. He that tilleth his own land shall be satisfied with bread, but he that followeth after vain persons is void of understanding. Now, you know, that's a profound and pregnant statement. Because what that is basically saying is, if you are productive, or if I take the negative, if you fail to be productive, you will not have penny bread. Or if you follow after vain person who come in and tell you they want to develop a hotel. You don't think by now, 50 years later, we should have the capacity to build our own hotels? The capacity to build our own docks? We need foreigners to come in to build a harbor for our cruise ships. You don't think 50 years later, if we had the right focus and we were not looking at the superficial, we should have been able to say some of the things that we are proud of today to celebrate in Jubilee. We should be able to say that we have achieved these things. Now, Proverbs 28:19 puts it a different way. It says, those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies will have their fill of poverty. Now you see number rockets popping up all around the town after the people voted no. Those who chase fantasies will have their fill of poverty. That's the Bible. And that's what we see happening today. That's one of the reasons why the unemployment statistics might be low, because people's job now is to the number rocket. And they ain't waiting for the number rocket. You know, I have a law firm right around the corner from the number rocket. And sometimes I wonder, I said, what kind of event must be going on over here today? The number of people that I gathered. I give the guys around my office jobs, and within minutes of giving them the job and paying them, the number man has that money. And they're looking to me for another little piece of job to get money to take to the number one. Those who chase after fantasies will have their fill of poverty. So my question is, at this stage of the game, when the moral rolls in, will independence be a jubilee, or will it be a fantasy Or will it be idolatry? We're still worshiping buildings, things. We won't stop for one moment. That's why I'm so happy that the former Minister of Education is here today. Why? Because I respect this man as a walking experience of education. Education was his entire life, and still is, continues to be to this day. And I remember my father used to always tell us in Rinaldo, get your books and read. Study, that's what the Bible says, to show yourself approved. Because once you get your education, no one can take it from you. No one. But we don't see any emphasis on education now. One of the loudest mouth members of Parliament in my time in Parliament is the Minister of Education. I can't hear her voice. They take in pornography and LGBTQ material into the school, and I can't hear her voice. Now, you know, these are some serious times. These are some serious times. You know, Kamala Mann, I don't know if you know that artist in the United States. Kamala Mann, she sings the song, Take Me to the King. Take Me to the King. And I believe our Prime Minister believes that means take us to King Charles. Take me to the king. But he wants to take us back to King Charles and the royal family and to the days of slavery, colonization, oppression, and subjugation. The Bible says, woe unto a nation when a slave becomes king. Woe unto a nation when a slave becomes king. When a slave needs the appreciation and the acceptance of the master. Take me to the king. Not King Charles, I tell you. And when you read the same constitution that I read, the name is need to know some history. When you go into the first arm of the government, which is the legislative branch of the government, you don't see no indication or symbols of the king, the queen, or anyone else with respect to the monarchy. And the reason for that is Charles the First, when he became king of England, he determined that he needs to take this parliament back from the commons. You know, in England, the parliament is called the House of Commons. He decided he wanted to take it back because he is sovereign, he is king. Everybody functions according to the edicts and dictates of the king. The parliament shouldn't have any power that is made by power subservient to theirs. So he decided he wanted to take the parliament. But the people rose up and the people beheaded Charles the First. A lot of the British tried to keep that out of their history. That they feed us. They beheaded Charles the First. That's why when you go into the House of Assembly, you don't see no picture of the Governor General. You don't see no picture of the Queen. You don't see any picture of the King. And this Article 71 shows the ambivalence of the independence. Because you have one arm of the government that is fighting for the freedom and control of democracy from the monarchy. And this arm of the government, under this Article 71, is saying that the control of the executive is vested in the monarchy, in the Queen or in the King. When you go through the ministries of the government, you can see all sort of pictures of the governor general who represents the king and the queen. Just thought I'd brought that in so you could have some idea of the level of mixed feeling and the contradiction and how I arrived at the word ambivalence with respect to our democracy. You know, in the days of colonization, and even to this day, as I saw on the news just recently in Uganda, the Ugandan people took a position with respect to LGBTQ material and homosexuality and lesbianism being promoted in their nation. And they took a harsh position, a strong position, and they created laws in their parliament that if anyone is caught finding, promoting those devices of the devil, or vices of the devil, they would suffer serious consequences. And you know what happened? The United States government decided, well, because the speaker came out in support of the law, and she tweeted something with respect to the support of the law that was recently passed, the United States took her visa, canceled her visa. In other words, they were prepared to sanction any decision that was contrary to their agenda, their globalist agenda. And I say today, it is not a new day. It is not a day. It's another day of what I call duality. It's another day of duality. Before 1973, we were British subjects. And you know, they made us sing, God save our gracious Queen, long live our noble Queen, God save the Queen, born to rule over us, happy and glorious. Imagine, they colonized us, they brought their rules, they brought their laws, they brought their language, and then they made us sing. As little boys in Inagua, on the 24th of May, we used to call it Constitution Day. Out in the hot sun, we had to sing, God save our gracious Queen. And then as that wasn't enough, they used to come and they tell us, there's another song they made us sing. Rule Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. Britons never, never, never shall be slaves. Now, the slaves singing, Britain never, never, never shall be slaves. That's why I say there's great ambivalence, because we should be happy and we should be celebrating independence, because that is where we came from. So we need to be happy about that. We need to celebrate that. But at the same time, we can't be celebrating that when these people still have this constitution over us that says the executive power of the country is vested in the Queen and now the King. And then in our third arm of the government, we can't get a final decision of the courts unless we go back to them again in a far distant land to the Privy Council for our final decision. That's why I say there's conflicts, great ambivalence, great love and hate. You know, we still pledging our allegiance to the King. When we are sworn in as members of parliament. The people in the Bahamas vote us in power, but we pledging our allegiance to somebody else in a far off distant land. We ain't pledging no allegiance to the people of the Bahamas. That's why we so mixed up. We can't get the kind of proper representation because we're living in what I call pairings of contrasting concepts. We're moving from best to worst, from light to darkness, from hope to despair. Our existence in an independent Bahamas is reflective of good and evil. Now, if you look at our situation, we are in a dependent state. We are more of a dependent people in 2023 than we were in 1973. We may argue otherwise, and we may glorify some people who might have been responsible for us achieving independence. But we are not in a better position. 50 years of corruption and plunder has made us more vulnerable to the globalists' importation of major conflicts between family and love, hate and oppression. They want to tell us what we can do. We have a situation now where they are telling you that human prosperity supersedes human despair, and that those who are depending or dependent have no right to be here. That's what COVID was all about. COVID was a biological weapon released on the world, principally to rid the world of those who they say have no right to be here. You know, democracy is not working the way they thought democracy would work, because black people in particular and minorities that used to be minorities are having too much children. All of a sudden, democracy can't be controlled by capitalism anymore. The aristocracy of capitalism that controls democracy is having a major challenge by just mere numbers. That is why you see them offering citizenship now to so many people, because they want to obligate you and make you feel that you are dependent upon those who grant the citizenship. And that is how democracy is turning. Now they've moved from biological weapons, and as a former scientist and chief meteorologist, I can tell you they're moving and using climate change as their next level of weaponry to try and achieve this agenda of globalization and minimizing human population. So when I see the Prime Minister singing this song about climate change, I am concerned. Not because there's no climate change. I know there's climate change, I know there's global warming. Despite when my last year in meteorology, when I attended a plenary in Washington, D.C. with George W. Bush as president, senior as president. The U.S. government position then, when the third world nations asked for the financing of the transformation of technology to stop release of the global warming gases, like the methane, the fluorocarbons and others, the aerosol sprays, the freon from the air conditioning systems and refrigerators. They said when it became economic, there was no global warming. that was cycle. That was just like we had the ice age, and now having the heat wave. That's going to go away, and we're going to move back to the ice age and so on. But all of a sudden, the globalist focus is climate change. Because a lot of initiatives, I can predict it, as a former hurricane forecaster. A hurricane is about to come. I can predict. Their agenda is to initiate a number of economic initiatives and blame it on climate change. Mark my word. We'll see it. But the Bahamas, as I wrap up, needs to move forward, upward, onward together. Now, I feel especially attached to that because my younger brother and Melvin both wrote that model. My younger brother, Vivian Moultrie, Melvin both wrote that model. Forward, upward, onward, together. But we must overcome our history if we're going to move forward, upward, onward, together. And I close with a final scripture from the Bible. In Isaiah 43, verses 18, it says, forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. That doesn't mean to erase the past and forget the past and go away with history. What it really means is you shouldn't dwell. That's what it says. Do not dwell on it. See, I'm doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I'm making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. These areas that we consider, these territories that they consider basically wasteland, have turned out to be the richest territories on the face of the earth. We just had the launching of a book, the Bible, the Bahama Islands and Biblical Prophecy, on Friday. I attended that ceremony. And we were making observations of what there are in the Bahamas that we seem not to know. And I remember, as a meteorologist, we used to receive reports from Jacques Cousteau. Some of you may be old enough to remember Jacques Cousteau. They would explore the oceans, and they came into between the tongue of the ocean. Now imagine God finding the deepest part of the ocean on the face of the earth and placing it in the Bahamas, between Nassau and Andes. The deepest part of the tongue of the ocean. Those reports from Jacques Cousteau were showing that, first of all, they couldn't find the bottom. They couldn't go deep enough because of the pressure and the weight of the water at certain depths. But what they discovered was all sorts of new life that they hadn't seen before. Different types of fishes that live at various levels as they went deeper and deeper. But what they also discovered was that the Arctic base that is in Andros was anchoring off nerve gaps in the tongue of the ocean. See, we don't know the resources. Now, the U.S. government, if they want to come into the Bahamas and experiment, and the only place they could experiment is the tongue of the ocean because that's the deepest part of the ocean in the face of the earth. Don't you think the government we should be getting billions of dollars from them for them to be able to come into our territories and do that? All the national debt that the Bahamas have can be erased just from that one project. If we could get beyond the slave mentality in our leadership. If we can get beyond our leaders just being so happy to sit around the table with our former colonists and our former masters. and think that they have arrived because they can socialize and not understand, like Dr. Martin Luther King said, that all they have been done, all the master has done, is move you from the prison cell and put you on the prison courtyard. But you're still in prison. And so, on this Independence Day, as we celebrate 50 years, the Bahamian people have to move beyond the superficial and get a deeper understanding and appreciation of God's purpose for us and for our nation in the scheme of things on His plan. And we have to educate ourselves. We have to become obedient and disciplined to God's precepts and principles. And only when we arrive at that mental state will we be free. The Bible tells us we shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Anybody who's coming to you and is not prepared to speak the truth to you, you should reject it. They are workers of iniquity. And so, happy independence, happy Jubilee, happy 50th. God bless the Bahamas, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, and the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you.